Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Barr,
Here.
Giovanini, Eckhoff,
Here.
Callis, Lee,
Here.
Cowser,
Here.
Bradshaw,
Here.
Cranford,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Willie.
Here.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have 3 items on there. We've had a chance to look those over.
I'll motion approval of the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Jamie, seconded by Scott. Roll call, please.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser, Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie.
Yes.
On the regular agenda, item A, asbestos abatement. Jim?
Yes, so the next step in the asbestos removal from 222 East Timber and 201 South Main. Deegan Associates put out the bids. The bids came back. Hussar abatement was the lowest at $4,600. None of those bids include what's called a third-party air sampling, which is required, which Deegan Associates will do. And so that fee would be the same no matter who of these companies would have, whatever their bid is. So I would recommend to accept the low bid of Hussar, and with Deegan's third-party handling, the total is $7,103, and that would be a TIF 1 expenditure.
Super.
So moved to acceptance of that bid.
I'll second.
Second by, or motion by Kelly, seconded by Jamie. Roll call, please.
Eckhoff,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr.
Yes.
Thank you. Coming up next, we have the Centennial Park Concept Agreement.
Yes, and as we spoke before, the concept idea of Centennial Park, which would be located in the parking lot where the large Route 66 mural is. PGAV, we've consulted with them to develop a concept plan. Discussing what our ideas were is laid out in this concept plan that you have. They submitted a proposal. That proposal came back at $41,500 to deliver several ideas in addition to any of the public hearings and coming up with a finalized plan for that area. So if we wish to move forward with that, we'll just need to authorize me to enter into that agreement with PGAV.
Do we have a date that they
So-
are to return?
Yeah, so.
I mean, there's the,
You'd have to go by their scope of services.
Okay.
Yeah, which sets out several periods in the different phases. 2 weeks for the site visit and the kickoff meeting. And that doesn't necessarily mean 2 weeks, then 5 more weeks later. That just means when we move forward to that next phase, that's how long each phase they expect to take.
well, because we know we're kind of behind the 8 ball, so the faster we can get moving
Yep.
and get going on it, the better.
Yes.
And that's from our community development
The
funds.
funding this would be a TIF 1.
TIF funds.
Sure, yeah.
I move to accept.
I second.
Motion by John Willie, seconded by Barr. Roll call, please.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser, Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Very good. This is, not the 8 ball so much, but should be one of our highest priorities for this coming year. So let's keep on trucking, as they say. All right, moving on to item C, Finance and Administration Committee report.
The Finance and Administration Committee met on Tuesday, November 21st, and I won't read the entire report here to you, but we had a presentation from Gavin Ramsey regarding fees to be charged at the recreation complex for use of the diamonds by various tournament type of activities, and went over those, kind of long overdue, but now that we've done some renovations out there, we're getting calls for it. So after Gary's had a chance, I think it will come back to council for us to finalize that. Then we went through all of the museum operations that we have downtown and how they are operated, how they are funded, and so we could all have some awareness of what things are doing with that. And so we went through all of those. And then finished up with a review of the employee personnel handbook that is being worked on by Jim and others. And that's long overdue. And so that will probably be coming back to us soon as well. That's it. It was a great meeting.
It was.
It was.
It looked pretty solid.
A lot of information. Anybody have any questions that wasn't there?
The handbook was the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the interesting things, I should say. All right, moving on. We're going to the exhibit purchase for Route 66 Museum. I see Liz is ready to fill us in.
Ready to go. Good evening, Council. I was approached by a photographer, Efren Lopez. I'm going to show you his book right now, and then I will go ahead and just pass this around to kind of explain a little bit more about this. So the city's been acquainted with Efren, well, since I've been employed here, so 10 years. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on him. He is a fantastic photographer, as you'll see when you flip through that book. He actually immigrated to Phoenix as a small child, where he came from Guatemala. He studied visual communications at Phoenix College. He later became a professor there. He enlisted in the Air Force Reserves in 1998 as a combat photojournalist, and he actually was deployed to Afghanistan in 2009. Awards. He was awarded the Army Combat Action Badge and the Air Force Combat Action Medal. He then hit the road and caught the bug, and he does travel a lot all up and down the road. He's based out of Camp Verde, Arizona. He sells tons and tons of merchandise, and I can tell you in our shop alone, we sell a lot. I know the Pontiac Oakland Museum, they sell a lot of his merchandise as well. And so he approached me with this idea of having an exhibit of the photographs that you see in his book right there. So it would be 110 images. He would like to come and do an event where he would do a book signing, talk about his travels, talk about his photos, and then he would also like to work with us to develop merchandise that's specific to our exhibit and what we have here in Pontiac. I think we're in a great location for this, seeing as how, we're just out of Chicago and he's all the way based on the west side of the road. He's also a photographer for Route Magazine, which is kind of the premier magazine now for Route 66 travel. So he has a great resume. He's really a nice person as well. So I would just like to ask council for permission to purchase that exhibit. It's 110 images, $75 per image, which will be framed and matted, and that brings the total to $82.50.
Question.
Yes.
Will this replace the Camp Verde?
So possibly, not permanently. There have been discussions about things that we can do with that, but yeah, potentially.
I've got another question.
Fire away.
Alan's probably going to have to answer. Should I not vote on this because I'm the curator at the museum?
No, you work,
I don't see,
pay them.
I don't see you having any financial benefit. I think you can vote, you're a volunteer. You probably know more about what's good for the museum than any of the rest of the council here.
Okay, no. I just thought because I do direct things that go in and don't go in. And, okay. They want us to do something goofy. I mean, I do that often enough.
When would this be available?
So with your permission to purchase it, we would start working on it right away. So the complex, not the whole complex, obviously, but a lot of the complex closes for the winter time. So we would take that time to work. There's some other work that has to be done on the second floor as well. So I've already talked to Rick a little bit about some of the things that need to happen, and then opening in the spring.
Well, as I said earlier, the Centennial Park is a important process for our next year or two, and this would be a nice jewel to add to that too. So, any other questions for Liz?
I've met him in the museum, and that book is right. His work is outstanding.
Okay.
He's a great guy.
That's why I was gonna ask you, what do you think about this?
Yeah.
Because you're the one.
Yeah.
I'll motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Jamie. Roll call, please.
Cowser?
Yes.
Bradshaw?
Yes.
Cranford?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Willie?
Yes.
Barr?
Yes.
Eckhoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to get to hear from Jake Kincaid. He has something he'd like to purchase.
I got to thinking, I pestered you guys for years about construction, and then separation. Now it's NARP. So if you remember, a couple months ago, we entered into an intergovernmental agreement with the city of Streeter and their engineering department on developing this NARP as required in our NPDS permit. We've been working together on that, getting that developed, and that's going good. And we've gotten to the point where part of this NARP, a major component of this NARP, is we have to generate live stream data from our receiving stream, which is the Vermilion River. And what this is going to entail is 4 locations upstream of our treatment plant where we discharge, and then downstream after sufficient mixing, and then same for them, upstream of their treatment plant discharge and downstream of theirs. So what we were going to do is go ahead and try to make one single purchase of all the stream equipment we're going to need to conduct that analysis. And what that'll be is about 4 months of probes being submerged at designated upstream and downstream locations in the river, and we continuously monitor various conditions such as oxygen level, pH, chlorophyll levels, all designed to determine if what we are putting back in the river is causing the river to be susceptible to algae growth. That's more or less the basis of this NARP. Is what we're doing is we have to prove to the EPA either what we're putting in is not causing the river to be impaired and to cause algae blooms, or what we're putting in is hurting it, and here's what we can do to mitigate it. So we're at that point now in this NARP development that we're going to need to purchase this equipment to move forward and generate that data. Really, there's the one company that actually manufactures what we actually need is Xylem, which Xylem's a conglomerate. They own so many smaller companies, so YSI is the brand of the equipment, which we have. Everything in our treatment plant upgrade was all YSI equipment, so we're very familiar with it. There'll be 4 probes, miscellaneous equipment, and the thing is where we try to save money is we got one reading machine, one reader, so we'll use one reader between the both of us to download all that data instead of each town having one reader. It didn't make sense, so we save some money there by just doing one. So that total for everything for both of us was $20,963, and split 50-50 will be $10,481.50 on our part. Now, the nice part is once we've conducted this analysis, the equipment, we can either choose to keep it. If we feel there's going to be potentially future instances that we'll want to generate that kind of data again, or if we don't, being as how NARP is going on all across the state and there's more and more NPDES permits that are requiring this NARP program, we can resell this equipment and get most likely the majority of our investment back to another community that is going to need to go through the same thing. So we've got options if we decide it's not worth keeping the equipment. But either way. So with your permission, I'd like to move forward and purchase our portion of the equipment for $10,481.50. And the wastewater treatment plant fiscal budget still has plenty of funds in the new equipment to cover this cost.
Jake, you think you'll be able to make any kind of profit off of training other facilities to do what you're doing or not? Or selling the idea?
How I feel is we've had a lot of conversations with the EPA trying to get them to guide us on what they want to see out of this. And I know they're doing, and I know a lot of communities are doing that same thing, so we'll definitely have a lot of information to give other communities should they be wondering or kind of asking how we approached it. But again, the nice part is there's operator associations and websites where there's a lot of topics and conversations going on that we do take part in, so there's a lot of, we communicate with multiple facilities all around the state. Everybody kind of just asking what they're doing, how they're approaching it. So there's quite a network of municipalities and operators all talking about this.
Seems like the EPA should be a third party in this, though, doesn't it?
And generally speaking, most everybody's feeling on the municipal side is what this NARP is the EPA wanting the data and having us generate it all for them with these reports to, that my opinion and many others, that's what this is. But we're bound by it by our MPDS permit. Yeah.
Two things I would just add on that is mutual aid between governments, of course, is a good thing that we benefit from as well. So I think going forward, if we're able to help others, that will come back to us. And the other is, if you remember, our other option through this whole thing was hiring consultants. And so the $10,000, $481.50 is still a pretty good deal for where we would sit.
So I take it Streeter has done their share.
Well above their share. As far as generating the paper, the hard copy part of the NARP, he's pretty close to having the first draft completed, and it is phenomenal. But yeah, we're working together, and so far everything has been great and fabulous.
Yes.
Are you making a motion, Jerry? Okay. Motion by Jerry, seconded by Kelly. Roll call, please.
Was it Kelly?
Yeah,
I think
was.
Jamie spoke
Oh,
first.
Jamie.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Somebody
sorry.
did.
Jamie then.
There was like 4 of us that,
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just trying to check. Okay, Bradshaw,
Yes.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff,
yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser.
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Moving on, we're going to give Gary Beckman a chance to make a proposal before the council on the Oaks Golf Course fee schedule.
Good evening, council. As we get ready for another golf season coming up, we decided the fees we would keep them the same as we have in the past, so we would remain competitive. The only change would be, the individual range membership would go to $250. We've had to replace a lot of golf balls, range balls this year. They seem to grow legs or get lost and go into an abyss and get lost. The cost of those has gone up. We used to be able to get them a couple years ago for $6 a dozen. They're now $6.50 a dozen. And as we go through the season and start to lose those, to replace those, last year I think it was, they bought additional. I forget how many dozen, but it was $7.50 a dozen. So it behooves us to buy them earlier at a lesser rate, in the hopes that we can keep them and, we don't lose them, so.
Are these fees and schedule ready to go out to the people that joined?
Yeah, well, as soon as, we get council approval, we'll send those out, before the end of the year.
Okay, good.
I just want to make one comment or maybe item for discussion on the personal carts for non-golfers, individuals. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that, people who live around the golf course but do not golf, but own a golf cart, have always, for years, the Elks had them pay fees in order to be able to ride around on the golf course and use essentially the paths for their thing. And so the Elks always had this fee to be able to maintain the roads on. And the city has kept that fee. However, we really do a very poor job of policing it. And we only charge $25 for people who own a cart to drive around the streets of Pontiac. So perhaps we need to revisit that amount, because I know there's individuals who pay it, but there's a lot of people who live around and have their own carts that drive around and they pay nothing. And no one ever asks them to, that you sticker the carts so someone knows, but no one really monitors it. So I think we need to revisit that line, or we need to do better education to those individuals who do, because a lot of people just don't even know that they're supposed to be paying a fee. They just go out. I mean, they're just out, they don't golf, but they have carts, and they just, they might go take their kids for a ride, or they're out hawking balls in the woods or in the ponds and things like that. And I guess I just feel it's unfortunate there are people who do pay the fees, and then there's others who don't do anything. So I guess I would just ask that we revisit that one.
Okay, I could, to make it equitable for those that pay and those that aren't paying, is, and excuse my ignorance on it, but is there a way that we could target those that are out there, live on the golf course or nearby, that we could send them notices or information about, here's how to get your cart stickered so that you have authorization to be on the golf course?
Yeah, well, and in the past, I mean, the Elks always did, every spring, they would send a letter to pretty much all residences that were on the golf course. Really, it was a friendly neighbor letter of, here's when you can be out on the golf course, maybe walking, or here's when you could maybe go fishing, or here's when, it had more information in addition to the cart thing. But, I mean, we didn't let anybody who had a cart come out. You had to be an Elks member because of liability. That doesn't exist anymore, so anybody can come out. But I might be, that's just an idea of, because I think there's a lot of public that just, if they don't golf, they're not aware that they don't ask. They just assume it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is one of the things that we have discussed as well, that information as far as like fishing or just walking the bike, the paths,
Right.
when people are golfing and the dangers that can exist there. And we also discussed doing better at having a ranger per se out patrolling the course and keeping an eye on things and alerting people who may be in unsafe positions or addressing those types of violations. We hadn't done that, and so I know Gary and I and Shannon have discussed that too.
Alan knows what I'm talking about.
Hadn't we talked about those trails being open to the public for walking, limited hours?
Well, I think we just never
Yeah.
have established anything.
It's
There's people out there, prime times of golf, fishing on the ponds and taking their life into their own hands if I'm golfing.
Yeah.
that's what we
And
want to address.
You can
Yeah.
tell, and bottom line is they're mostly nice folks, and they're just viewing it as a public park instead of a golf course.
Right.
And even on this cart thing, there may be a difference between somebody that's a golfer and has a golf membership and wants to use his personal card versus people that live in a subdivision, and still maybe a different fee structure for that.
Well, and that's what there is, but it's not really monitored. I mean, that they pay just $125, which seems, I think if we get it out to the public, they might say, if I only have to pay $25 to register my cart to drive it on the city streets, why do I have to pay another $125 to drive it on the golf course?
Well, if they've looked at the cart path, it needs some maintenance
Yeah,
coming up, so
right,
put a
right.
sinking fund for some maintenance would be
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. I think it's a good point, though. I think
But, and, the sticker and the police, I think Shannon probably, or the people who work there probably know who's out there and who isn't. I don't think it's lack of knowledge necessarily. It may be that they've never been told to enforce.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is they just,
I'd agree.
To send somebody home if they got a personal card without a sticker. Say, you gotta go home and walk.
right, yeah,
well, the ranger idea is probably going to be beneficial from that standpoint.
for a lot of reasons.
Yes, very, very, quite a few, yes. Which would possibly save a lot of injury down the road, so, yeah. I think that's something we'll have to put out for the general information for the residents out there and for the community in general.
Exactly. I think you're right.
Yeah, there are some people who bring their carts from their homes in town.
Well, and just the walking and fishing, as you referenced
Yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
I could see people from the community coming out for that, so
Yeah.
good knowledge for everyone to have.
Well, see who's fishing, just see how many carts are by the half, or how many cars are by the halfway house. If they park there and go.
Right.
So, yeah, like I said, the fees will stay the same. The only change is the individual range. And we can certainly work on getting the communication out to the community about hours and the cart fees and et cetera. So, with your approval, we'll be ready to send these out before the end of the year.
I definitely think we should do that. I've already heard from several people who are anticipating joining, so, yes.
I don't know what the golf numbers were last year, but there were a lot more people going by my house than
Yeah.
there have been for a long time. And we used to have the place to ourselves on Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon. Not anymore, somebody in every hole.
Yeah.
So that's very positive, but
Good
I'll make a
thing.
motion to approve fee
Are we
schedule.
approving all of it? Or are we taking that one fee into consideration?
I think we're going to take that under,
The other fees are already in place,
Yeah.
so just the change of the range,
Personal card fee.
individual range membership.
Okay.
motion by Jason, seconded by
I'll second.
Mike Barr. Roll call, please.
Cranford,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes,
Lee,
Yes.
Causer, Bradshaw.
Yes.
Thank you. Gary, while you're up there,
Thank
golf
you very
cart
much.
renewal.
Yeah, so our lease on our golf carts is coming up. It's come up again, and so we've, Shannon's gotten a couple of quotes out. You see the one in front of you from Battery Specialists and Golf Cars. They're the ones that we've used for several years and have been good to us. Shannon really likes them. They're quick to respond whenever there's an issue, whenever there's a mechanical issue with the carts. You can see the price there is per cart, $350, well, it's $172, comes out to $96.44 for 56 carts. And that will pretty much cover, any of our outings, any things we have out there. On occasion, we might have to get a couple more, but for the most part, that'll cover us for the whole season. Same carts as we had in years past. The only difference is we did get a second bid from Yamaha, which was very competitive, this one, but based on the history we have with golf cart. And on top of that, we negotiated, you'll see in the middle section there, second row, it starts with number decal, right next to it's deluxe right above that, premium black gray seats. Instead of the standard seats, we got a free upgrade to the premium black gray seats. These are pretty plush, and I think it'll be a nice enhancement to our golf carts and our golfers out there this coming year and for years to come. And that's normally, I think, a $60 to $80 per cart add-on that they're throwing in for complimentary for us.
And your cart rental is pretty robust, so with a new rate structure there, we should be covering these costs easy.
Yeah, and, as we move forward, because it's really, it's not, it's a small increase from what we have currently with the lease. And like I said, it was competitive with another one, and then we had a third one that was way out of the ballpark for us, so.
But it is a great opportunity to increase our daily rates because people will see that we have new carts and won't question a price increase because they'll think that, why not, revenue's important. So it would behoove us to look at that too.
Yep.
Yeah, we should get these sometime in June, I believe is when Shannon said to expect them.
Okay.
The other nice part about dealing with the same company is you can coordinate the end of the lease when they pick them up and when they bring the new ones. You don't have to worry about making the timing of the whole lease arrangement match up perfectly because you're dealing with the same company.
Yeah, and the other thing with Yamaha, they're a little bit wider cart, and with the storage that we have for the carts out there, they may not all fit under cover and in that building. So these are the same size carts, people's covers fit them. There's a lot of pluses to going with club cart instead of switching to Yamaha.
Very good. Need a motion to approve.
I'll motion to approve.
I'll second.
Motion by Scott, seconded by Kelly. Roll call, please.
Howard,
Yes.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes,
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser.
Yes.
Bradshaw. Yes. Cranford.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary. Next up, we have tax levy ordinance. I believe Jim is just aching to talk about that.
Mayor had asked me to go line by line on this. The ordinance levy you have in front of you, we had the draft at the last council. It comes out the same. I didn't make any changes. I didn't have any comments or requests for any changes. And it is it's under a 5% increase. Our CPI was 5%, so no truth in taxation hearing was necessary. And in addition, if you recall, that it actually is while we picked up money, it actually decreased the rate because of the EAV increase. So I would just recommend that we approve ordinance 2023-0029, or the tax levy.
so is it a lesser impact on the tax base?
For
So
About the
some,
same?
yes, and I think how you look at it is if your EAV went up, your tax liability went up with that as well. But this isn't a tax. This is just a levy requesting an appropriation for an amount of money to conduct operations. And with PTEL, the property tax extension limits, we're only able to request an amount of funds equal to the CPI or 5% or less, unless you have a truth in taxation hearing or a referendum. So it's been customary that we don't ever exceed that. We've been okay, our budget's been okay not doing that, and we didn't feel the need to do that this time. So while we did ask for an increase of 4.9% from last year, because of the overall impact of the EAV and the tax, the rate is lower.
I got you.
Wasn't much, if you recall, it was like $100 and some
Yeah.
difference, so.
I would motion acceptance of 2023-0029.
And I would-
Okay, motion by Kelly, seconded by Barb. Roll call, please.
Willie,
Yes.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser. Bradshaw.
Yes.
Cranford.
Yes.
Howard. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next we have annexation and zoning agreement for the Forest Ready Mix, 1305 North Division Street.
Yeah, this is one of those, they needed the sewer, so they needed the city. And they, to hook up to the sewer, required them to sign an irrevocable annexation petition. This is just putting that annexation in place, giving them the M1 zoning that they need for their property, which fits out on, the road they're on, no problem. It blends right in. So, the annexation plat shows the property. Most of the people here know it. The magic thing about passing it today is that I record it before the levy, or by the time the levy due date is, it'll be on the tax rolls for 2023. So if I get it on file this week before next Tuesday, it'll still be taxed as in the city for the entire 2023 year.
Okay.
They've already connected.
They haven't balked, they just had to do it.
Yep.
But it's just more of a ministerial act than it is a discretionary act here,
So these are in-laws to me.
okay?
Can I vote?
Yes, again, you have no direct
Money, yeah.
no direct financial benefit to it, and they requested it, and it's a benefit to the city. When you get into those conflicts where the money.
They've said nothing to me about this anyways.
So, we just need a motion.
I'll
then.
motion acceptance of the annexation.
Motion by Kelly, seconded by John Willie. Roll call, please.
Barr,
Yes.
Eckhoff.
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Cowser.
Yes.
Bradshaw.
Yes.
Cranford.
Yes.
Howard. Yes. Willie.
Yes. One quick question about that, though. How does that affect the properties around it?
It's a hodgepodge out there. It
It
depends
is.
on the ones that are in and what aren't.
Yeah.
There was another business out there that had problems they were able to address that would have increased the number out that direction, but at some point in time, they'll all need the city for something and the services, and they'll annex, but they're not surrounded, so we can't compel the annexation.
But at least it may add some places contiguous
Yeah.
with their property, and they enter into Ward 5.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to the Bresner subdivision.
Now, speaking of conflicts, I've got to make full disclosure here. Mr. and Mrs. Bressner are clients of mine, and I assisted them. I do it for a lot of people for the city. I actually help prepare the petition to make sure it complies with our requirements. And they are representing themselves. They've represented themselves at the zoning board hearing and are representing themselves here today. But factually, this came up at the zoning board. They're here because the property they purchased from Roger's parents is within 1.5 miles of the corporate limits. It's out on the road, if you go past the hospital and turn right, it's long ways from the city. But because it's within 1.5 miles, the city has zoning jurisdiction. Or not zoning jurisdiction, subdivision jurisdiction. So they had to file with the city, even though, not realizing that, we filed with the county first. No, not realizing within 1.5 miles. I didn't look at the map. So that's what they're at. The plan is, factually, the plan is they bought this property that's with 3-some acres from Jerry and Myrtle. They want it divided into 2 lots, one of which has the farm buildings and one of which has the house. The house site is going to be sold to Roger and Debbie's son and daughter-in-law, Ross and Carly, and they're going to demolish the old home and build a new home. But even if it's a city subdivision, it will not be in the corporate limits. It's not gonna be a city tax on the new home or anything, but the question here is always, it asks for a waiver of all the subdivision improvements. Obviously, there's no water or sewer out there, so it's got septic and, well, and street, they probably got a farm light that could work as a street light maybe, Roger, I don't know, but, you know, sidewalks, you know, probably wouldn't go anywhere, so.
I'm Roger Bressner. My wife Debbie and our son Ross and his wife Carly. The kids are the ones who want to build the home out there. The old family farmstead has been there forever. Mom and Dad have moved to town, and Debbie and I own the place now. So what we'd like to do is keep it in the family so the kids move out there and build their new home. And I would retain ownership of the half of the property where the farm buildings are at for now. And then someday when I do retire, the kids will buy that from me. But that's our wish, is to keep it as a farm, not have to adhere to any sidewalks or street lights sort of requirements. You know, it's straight north of the hospital emergency entrance, and it's right out, you know, west of the interstate, so it is still farm country for now, but that's what we're asking.
And again, it's
One
just the
street light.
proximity of,
It's within a mile and a half, we have jurisdiction, that's to control the growth. Like if you're in Bloomington Normal, a mile and a half is not near as far away as if you're in Pontiac, Illinois.
yeah.
You know, the mile and a half looks different here, but, and the other thing, practically speaking, you're saying, well, it's in the family, why don't they just build the house on it and go? They can't, it's a financing deal, you have to have your lot to build the house on to be able to mortgage it.
Sure.
So they can't just build it on the farmstead and move on, they've gotta be able to mortgage a separate lot for that house. So it needs to be divided, and it'll get two separate tax bills after it's subdivided.
So we just need a motion to.
It's a motion to approve the ordinance.
I'd be happy to make the motion.
I'll second.
They're good neighbors of mine.
Motion by Mike, second by several, but we'll go with Jerry.
One minor, on
typo.
the ordinance, I just noticed this, it says motion by Callis, second by Pontiac.
Oh, that would be because the form that I used, obviously, I filled that in before
That
it was
was way
recorded.
old, Pontiac.
The motion
Well, you know,
not include that.
I went back to a mile and a half, two-lot subdivision.
Oh,
It's
sure.
been a long
Yeah.
time since we've had one.
Yeah.
I had to search for it. I forget whose it was, but it's 2002 or.
You're making history, Roger.
A long time ago.
It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
Okay. So back to roll call, please.
Eckhoff?
Yes.
Lee?
Yes.
Causer?
Yes.
Bradshaw?
Yes.
Cranford?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Willie?
Yes.
Barr?
Yes.
Yes, this
So do we
is
say
the
the
time you miss
motion? I'll type it
Brian.
in.
Barr.
No votes. Moving along.
Thank you, Council.
You bet.
Thank you.
8,
Mayor's comments.
2,
Tell you
there's
the
2
truth, I just
So you're gonna do that
would like
one?
to wish
Well,
everybody a
sorry,
Merry
we got
Christmas
fixed.
and a Happy New Year,
I'm gonna fix it.
as we won't be meeting until after the
I'm
first.
leaving Wednesday.
So everybody should have a great holiday
I need to sign
season
it. I need to sign it.
and make plans to give the
For
high
sure.
school
Otherwise
a
I'll be back
tour
there.
Sure.
during the
sign the
holiday tournament,
annexation.
Yeah,
which is coming up right after Christmas. The 92nd, I believe it is, annual, so a big event for the community. Council comments.
I just want to bring up solar farms again. Jim and I had a conversation the other day, and I've gotten calls from several landowners who are going to be seeking potentially variances or permitting from us for more rural locations, but because they're within certain, and I don't know, I mean, I mentioned to Jim, maybe there's a lot of questions that people may have about the impact financially, the impact environmentally, and would it behoove us to have just a session where we learn about all these things so that we can make an educated decision when these come before us? we implemented the 1,500-foot setback on 23, 8 years ago, when we were just starting fresh. Did we understand why we were asking for that 1,500? Is it still applicable? There's just a lot of things that maybe even the zoning board should be involved with. I don't know, Alan, you can maybe chime in on this.
Well, I
but-
think somebody needs to look to see whether that is still viable, and that requires the zoning board in the process.
Right,
But,
and-
it's an issue that comes up for that Route 23 corridor, but only for the properties on the 23 corridor that are
In the
annexed
city.
to the city. And there are on the 23 corridor some that aren't.
Right. So
Somewhere
I,
closer to the city.
Some are closer
Yeah,
to the city,
yeah.
exactly.
and they can get approval without really.
And as a
and
matter
those
of fact, they
obstacles.
get almost automatic approval because there was a state law, I can't remember the bill number, back, I think in January, that told the counties that you shall approve any solar or wind development if it meets these requirements, and it has setback requirements. And that's statutory. So if one goes to the county and it meets those requirements, they have no choice but to approve it. They did what they did for like livestock farms. They took them out of the jurisdiction, more or less, of the county to control. That same bill did not affect the city. The city still can zone like it has always zoned. That I've even heard that there might be a move to come back on the one that was denied where the water tank is. That they might want to make another run at that.
And that's one that has spoken with me, and I think we all, there's more to it that we don't know, that there's a lot of good reasons why we should approve it. And, on the surface, you think, why do we want to have this? But there's a lot more legislation that has happened in the government that really is choosing Pontiac to be a location for other reasons, and I think it would just be important for all of us to understand all of that.
The special use permits that we have is, once that's in front of us, once someone's conformed to that, we're all so in that same spot.
Basically, the law is on special uses, if they meet the requirements and you don't have one of the disqualifying things that you find it will adversely affect property values, things like this, you have to prove it. I mean, it's not like, there's really not discretion. There's case law out there that we provide what you have to do, and if they do it, we need to say yes. But we also still have the backdrop of the requirements that you have to make some findings about not adversely affecting other property and things like that that still come into play. But really, if they meet the requirements, we should be approving them. But the 1,500-foot setback requirement is still a requirement, so they can't meet that. So they're asking to vary that, which puts it back into the discretionary vote.
No, what I was trying to get at is, we're the ones that assembled the special use permit. We're the ones that created that criteria.
We're the ones that create
the criteria.
In a zoning situation, you either allow something in certain types of zoning, or you allow it, but only with a special use permit because it's fairly unique and you want to look at it on a case-by-case basis, or you say it's never allowed. It's not much in between.
Right. So we could revisit
You
that.
can revisit anything, you can revisit the setback. We did the when we did the ordinance for permitting, we first of all, we need to understand, the city passed an ordinance, we were authorized to do this under the Illinois Municipal Code, to not allow any wind inside the corporate limits. So we haven't had any wind farm apps, because we prohibit it. We have a solar ordinance that permits solar under the circumstances. They're very similar. It was followed the county ordinance almost to a T, except for that Route 23 setback.
Why do we not do
The wind, probably more visual and thinking the distance from the community. You can see a wind turbine for miles, and you drive a block away from a solar farm, you don't see it. I don't know, I mean, it was not viewed positively. Plus, there was a concern about, I don't know if it's a terrible concern, but that businesses themselves would, inside the corporate limits, want to put, like Aldi's, over by Aldi's in Dwight, they've got the wind turbine are down at Heartland. they've got their own wind turbine. So, right, we just passed an ordinance saying there shall be none in the corporate limits. But we don't control the mile and a half. The only thing, so people understand, the reason we had the Bressners is because subdivision and subdivision alone, we control within outside our limits for a mile and a half. We don't control zoning, we don't control really anything else outside our corporate limits.
I guess just to key in with Kelly, my concern, I mean, I actually have panels on my home. And, but my concern is once, for example, we have a farm out by the airport. There's another one just slightly contiguous over to it. And I understand, there's another one wanting to be developed out. So after a while, you get this layer of panels all around. And we could ultimately encircle the city with panels. And not that that's a bad thing, but
Champaign area, there's some of those same way.
But
It's
there's
absolutely
some aesthetics we might want to take a look at and keep.
That's a legitimate zoning concern. Aesthetics are, and the reason the property owners want them is because they're a very high return on investment. You know, that we get on the ones at the airport, $2,000 an acre plus the inflation rider. The newer private offers have been in the same level. It used to be the city had 2,000, when others were getting offered 1,200, 1,300. Now we're seeing private offers, 2,000. There's one by Dwight, somebody brought in to me the other day, showed 2,500. So $2,500 an acre versus maybe $350 an acre cash rent on a farm. So we're talking about a huge return, but it takes the farm completely out of production.
Right.
And there's, in our area, a lot of agricultural people that view it as a real sin to take productive farmland, God only made so much of it, you know, out of food production and crop production to do energy. And there are some of those people, I'm assuming, probably are not all that pro the green energy movement at all.
Well, I think that's why I'm suggesting the meeting, because I think there's more to it than, I mean, the economic impacts that we could gain from allowing is much more than the current real estate tax that we would get off of these properties. And so we need to explore revenue opportunities for our community. But I pose the question to the ladies in trajectory, you know, is there's going to become a saturation point that the submission lines won't take any more farms around us. They don't know what that is yet, but you know, I think that's why I think we all just need to learn more about so that we can make an educated decision.
There's already a wind farm out on the east side by Emmington, east side of the county, that is delayed because they can't get the interconnect. And the interconnect's the key. They have to get the interconnect, the contract to sell the production. And that interconnect's controlled by state organization, basically.
And coming down the pipe is the, I know Tipsord was saying it's going back up, the governor vetoed it, but it's going back up another vote to put in small nuclear plants. They're about the size of a reactor that's on a submarine. They can power 7,000, 8,000 homes. They'd be not much bigger than, smaller than this room. Those may be coming back up.
And we need to address whether that would be allowed. People get all, I mean, nuclear energy, pretty efficient, except for the negative, the stuff you get left over, you know, the
Yeah, but on
waste.
these, on the nuclear subs, there's not waste left over. These run so efficient and clean,
And
it's
they
not
can
even
run, you know,
believable.
when the wind isn't blowing or the sun ain't shining, they're producing electricity. You turn the switch and make more. So there's a lot of positives to nuclear, and the rest of the world's done a lot of nuclear. If you look at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission website, they put a red dot where they are and what the date they are. And where we haven't built any for a long time, Japan, so the Mideast, they've all built lots and lots of them. Even though they're saying they're doing all of the green stuff, they're building nuclear at the same time to meet the demand. Can't meet the demand.
It's green though. I mean, nuclear
really
is
is.
green.
Correct.
There's no emissions. It's green.
All right, well, I think we're all in agreement, we need more
But how do you get
education
it?
all the way
I think
around.
the $1 million question is how do you get this
Yeah,
education?
well, I mean, I think there's and we need both sides of the equation. I mean, we
Right.
You
need
can't just have a salesman.
detractors. Yeah, we need detractors and people who, you know, so I mean, Jim and I talked, and maybe the county might have some people they've used as resources, but maybe our representatives' offices might have. I don't, you know,
Don't the banks handle a lot of the, like farm properties?
Well, they handle some, they're not near the majority. They're not near the majority of Livingston County's bank managed or farm managed at all.
yeah, I think, I mean, but I'm thinking more about not necessarily landowners, but individuals that would
But
have.
people like the Farm Bureau probably have
Oh,
some
they
kind of
might,
policy.
yeah, they might, yeah.
So like the Farm Bureau and then some energy, Clean Energy Association, might have people that aren't necessarily working for one of the providers. It kind of, that's why we have the conflict of interest thing. If you happen to be somebody that's selling it,
Yeah,
you're not necessarily the one that should be teaching it.
Well, why don't we, see if we can line up a, committee of the whole with a couple educational, people that could give us a better insight and see where it takes us from there.
I'm sure the state would be glad to give you some people too,
Yeah.
with their
Right, I
policy.
have that on my
Yeah.
list.
yeah.
Okay,
I believe the zoning people should be at that same meeting.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, the zoning people
Yes.
need to be educated on this because we need, as we go through this process, we need to conduct our hearings very professionally. Probably ought to make sure every applicant has the opportunity to hire a reporter or something to be able to make a transcript if they wanted to file some kind of appeal. We need to, because these things are high dollar value. It's not just somebody wanting to put a garage in their house.
Okay. Any other council comments? If not, city administrator.
Just a couple, during the meeting, I got a text from Jim Melvin, his surgery went well.
Good, I wondered about that
And
today.
he's resting comfortably. Don't know what that says, I can't read my writing. And then Santa Brock told me that the ice rink, with the weather going
Yeah.
the way it is, by the weekend should be good to go.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say melted because it's supposed to be so warm.
No, this year, they have insulated underneath it and taken
Okay.
some steps to try and, combat some of that
Yeah,
warm air trapping
Yep.
underneath, and so he says it seems to be working really well.
good.
And then, the other note is, if I hadn't mentioned, we went through the process of, recodifying, our code that was finished in it was up through 2017, if you recall, online. So we've gone back and we've updated that to 2022. And we're still kind of reviewing that. And, we noticed that there are still some things that didn't show up, like solar farms was one of them. Because I'm like, oh, great, it's online. So I jumped on there. I'm like, but not that. So we're just making sure that everything we submitted gets updated online. So hopefully all those codes online, so residents and businesses alike will be able to just use the internet and find the specific requirements for whatever code they're looking for without us having a map of pencil and a stack of ordinances. So other than that, last week went pretty well. We had a dismal weekend, but I know police and fire were busy, as were the rest of the staff. And once again, I thank the staff. They make my life a lot easier, so I appreciate that.
Just food for thought, maybe for our next meeting, is if you have had any ideas of how we're going to conduct budget meetings this next.
Yes.
I don't need an answer now, I just.
No, it's okay. I that actually has been a top concern of mine. As you know, we're still fighting through the audit from last year. It's kind of a byproduct, when I had Lauterbach come in, and they went backwards. They're caught up now, but that still pushed this year back. And so there's a number of things that need to happen. And, you know, for me, having those last year's final numbers with how each fund's balances are sitting, I have rough ideas on all that. And so I'm ready to start looking at that. Staff, I'll be getting with them for what their upcoming needs are. And I plan that January to be a pretty heavy committee month with council to go through the budget. And then that way, February, we can finalize some things. That way we're ready for March to have our public hearing and be ready without that last minute, oh my gosh, I gotta get this done thing.
Well, with the addition of Louderback and the work that Jim's done, we are moving much more in the right direction. Public comments. Anything to bring for us? No public comments? All right. Other than that, again, since we won't really meet until after the 1st, everybody have a great holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and again, don't forget the holiday tournament if you are so inclined.
The next two meetings will be pizza meetings.
Ooh.
Oh,
they're on Tuesdays. All right.
Years in Martin Luther King.
Yeah, let's put that on the top of the agenda. All right. With that,
I will be gone for the next.
Okay, I'll make a
1st
motion
January
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
I'll second.
There you go. We're adjourned. Thank